This is CounselCast, part of the Legal Talk Network, and I'm your host, Karen Conroy. When you face a complex case outside your expertise, you bring in a co-counsel for next-level results. When you want to engage, expand, and elevate your firm, you bring in a marketing co-counsel. In this podcast, I bring in marketing experts who each answer one big question to help your firm achieve more. Here's today's guest.
Hi, I'm Allan Dib. I'm the founder of SuccessWise, and I'm best known for my best-selling book, The One-Page Marketing Plan.
Allan, thank you for being here. This is a great episode because this quarter we are really focusing on marketing strategy. And we've talked to a lot of people about the anatomy of marketing, what strategy is, why you need it, what's going to happen if you don't have it. Excuse me. And this time, in this episode, we are going to focus in on actual good takeaway information because your book is, like you mentioned, the one-page marketing strategy. So that kind of gives away our title for the show. But we are going to talk about how do you create a one-page marketing plan. So I feel like I got an MBA. Most of our marketing plans were not one page. They were very long and detailed and went on and on and on and on. So let's first start with, I know you've talked a lot about just the definition of marketing to begin with. So what is it? What is marketing?
Well, glad you asked that. And literally in my book, I assume nothing. So meaning that I assume that whoever's reading the book is a technician, really good at what they do, doctor, lawyer, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever. And literally in the first chapter of the book, we define what marketing is. And so I use a little analogy there, and I'm happy to read it for you. It says, if the circus is coming to town and you paint a sign saying circus coming to the showground Saturday, that's advertising.
Yes.
If you put a sign on the back of an elephant and walk into town, that's promotion.
Yeah.
If the elephant walks through the mayor's flower bed and the local newspaper writes a story about it, that's publicity. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations.
Yes.
If you get the town citizens to go to the show, spend a lot of money at the booths, that's sales. And if you planned the whole thing, that's marketing.
I love this. I love this because over the course of my career, I've had so many people ask me what the difference is between all of those elements. Yeah. And isn't that just marketing? And isn't it just basically putting together an ad or, doing any of these things? Yeah. And I think that is such a perfect explanation of all the various pieces that can make up a good marketing plan and campaign and all the different pieces that might go into it. Okay, so we've got all those ideas. And now we need a plan. Before we do any of those ideas, we need a plan. Yeah, so it's kind of backstepping into the whole idea of marketing is where you start is with this plan. But tell us how we can do this in one page. And how do you even begin when you're thinking, okay, this is going to be single page, one page?
Well, I wrote this book for myself, maybe about 10 years prior to starting my first business because I struggled with this so much. So I had hired an expensive consultant to help me put together a marketing and a business plan. And it was many, many pages long. And I'm sure he had an MBA and it had charts and graphs and projections and all those sorts of things. And of course, what did I do with that plan? I shoved it in the top drawer of my desk, never saw it again until I was moving out of that office, dusted it off, threw it in the trash and was sort of angry at myself for wasting a lot of money on something that I'd never use. And so really, I wanted to see, look, could we synthesize the 80-20 of putting together that big, long plan and put it together on one page? And why one page? Because one page feels easy to do. One page is easily shareable. So, for example, if we want to share our marketing plan with our web developer, our copywriter, our SEO guy, or whatever, we can easily say, "Hey, this is our marketing plan right now," so that you're aware who our target market is, who our message is, what technology we use, so on and so forth. And so it's also easily updatable. So it's a living plan. So when we get better and more information, we know, hey, this message lands better with our audience or whatever else. We can just update that at any time. And so that to me was a very important element, because these big, long, intensive plans, they generally don't get updated very often, if ever.
Yeah, I want to actually dig into that for a minute, because I feel like people do this once and they think that it is now written in stone. And so this is the marketing plan, and we can't stray from this, even if the data is telling us something different.
Exactly.
So how often should we be looking at it and making these adjustments, and how much should we adjust it? So if we adjust it, like, let's say more than a certain amount, should we just start over?
Sometimes you start over, but generally speaking, it evolves over time. So when I look at my marketing plan, I evolve the message over time. Sometimes we will recalibrate with what audience we're working with. So, for example, we start working with a particular type of audience, a particular type of client, and we find out, wow, these guys are really ideal for what we do. And so we may recalibrate, readjust some of our message, or some of our sales team will test out a message with an audience, and we found, wow, that message really lands, it really converts. So of course we're going to update our plans. So really I think of it as a living document, that whenever we get better and more information over time, when we get better data, when we get feedback from the marketplace, either in the sales process or maybe in our support desk, we will absolutely update that. So I always look for that nodding head when I'm speaking, either on a podcast or live or on a sales call or whatever else. I look out for messages that get really good responses via email, via whatever. And so I'm always updating my own one-page marketing plan to reflect better and more information, better data. And so really, I mean, it's not like, hey, you need to be doing it at a particular cadence once a week or whatever. But whenever you get better and more information, you can just update your plan, and because it's a single page, easily editable, you can just do that at any time. You don't need to spend hours and hours or hire a consultant or do those sorts of things. That's
okay. So what I'm hearing is that you kind of take the data that you've got from your clients and as you're working through, but what about in a lot of questions I'm getting lately are related to the economy. So if we're headed into a recession, and should I be backing out of changing, adjusting, revising, rethinking my marketing plan based on what's happening in the economy?
100%. You should always be riding the relevant conversations and trends that people that's happening in the marketplace. So, back when the economy was booming, your message may have been around, hey, here's how you make more profit. Here's how you can grow. Growth was a very big factor. Now a lot of people are kind of shoring up the walls and thinking about, how do I tighten things up? How do I reduce costs? How do I make sure I stay in business and ride this out and be there for the next boom? So absolutely, you should readjust and pivot your message with whatever's relevant and whatever's happening. And again, that's a great reason to be updating your one-page marketing plan and saying, hey, we're just going to recalibrate our message a little bit. We're going to tone down the stuff about growth and and all of that sort of stuff, and then we're going to focus more on how do you survive the recession, how do you cut costs, how do you be a sustainable, profitable business through this time.
Yeah, I remember mid 2020 when we were kind of getting into the pandemic, and I was talking to an advisor about these kind of global marketing phrases and trends and concerns that just globally people cared about, and the things that they anticipated people caring about at that time, before they had any sense of COVID being part of the picture, had been completely flipped upside down. So, at that, kind of what you're describing, they had anticipated and made all these marketing plans based on growth and, just kind of making incremental and valuable changes. But then all of a sudden COVID came along. And what people cared about, what clients and customers and people cared about in their marketing, was an understanding that they were safe, that there was a community, that there was there was an adjustment being made for COVID and the safety of meetings and all of that stuff. And you saw that across every website and every kind of marketing channel. And the people who weren't paying attention to that, you looked outdated. You looked like you were not paying attention. Like it was,
Totally.
You need to kind of be up with what's happening in the world. It seems
Totally.
like, yeah. Okay, so let's dig into this one-page marketing plan. So how do you start?
Okay, so for the visual people who are listening or watching, if you visualize a single page divided up into 6 blocks, so there are 3 blocks at the top, 3 blocks in the middle, and 3 blocks at the bottom. So the first 3 blocks are what we call the before phase. So that's before anyone knows that you even exist. And so those 3 blocks that make that phase up are called your target market is the first block, the second block is messaging, and the third block is media. So market, message, media. They're the 3 things that we really need to get right for someone to become aware that you exist.
Okay.
So that's our messaging, who we want our clients to be, and then how we're going to reach those clients. The next phase is called the during phase. So it's before, during, and after. So the during phase is somebody's raised their hand and said, look, hey, I'm potentially interested in what you've got. And that may be, in the case, it might be phoning your office, it may be submitting a contact form, it may be opting in on one of your blog posts. Any way that someone's become aware of you and they've kind of raised their hand and said, look, I'm vaguely interested in what you've got to offer, tell me more.
Yeah.
And so the during phase, we do 3 things again. So we capture those leads, we nurture those leads, and then finally we convert those leads. So there's the lead capture, lead nurturing, and lead conversion during that phase. And then a lot of people feel, hey, marketing's done after then. We've converted them to a paying client for the first time.
Yep.
Done. Marketing. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. The most profitable part of our journey is the after phase, and the after phase has 3 steps also. So the first one is delivering a world-class experience. So turning people from their first transaction to being a raving fan. The next step is increasing customer lifetime value. So how do we take someone from purchasing once or twice and increasing either the frequency or volume or ascension of the level of the product that they're on, and doing business in more volume, more frequency, higher price level, whatever's relevant in your industry. And then the final step is, how do we orchestrate and stimulate referrals, meaning turn one client into multiple clients? How do we get clients to refer to each other and do that in a systematic way? Because most people think of referrals as kind of, hey, I hope and pray I'll do a really good job. I hope and pray someone will give me some referrals, right? And
I will say that I can't even tell you the number of conversations I've had with potential clients where if you picture those 9 boxes, they start the conversation with, we've basically, our entire marketing strategy is box number 9. We get all of our business through referrals. We don't need SEO. We don't really need marketing. We find it kind of like there's a lot of attorneys who don't want to think of themselves as business people. They want to think of themselves as this kind of higher calling. And, I'm here to be a rude awakening to let you know that this is a business and you don't call them customers. I know the legal industry all has, fancy words for everything, clients and their firms, not businesses, but you have to make money at the end of the day, or you can't continue to serve those clients and serve that higher purpose that is at the core of what you're trying to do. So just having box number 9 as your entire marketing strategy, like even if you just picture this as this 9-box grid and you're only focusing on 1 out of 9, it's pretty clear that you are really missing most of, the other really important pieces.
Well, referrals are an incredibly important and powerful part of our marketing strategy. But for the most part, we're putting that in other people's hands, right?
Yes.
And so we want to control our own destiny. We want to control our own lead flow. And the other thing is referrals are a longer term strategy. So it can take 10, 15 years to build up enough lead flow from referrals only, if that's the only thing that you're relying on. And so, yes, of course, we want to do a great job. We want to please people. We want to fulfill our vision and all of that. But if we lose the business, or if we go out of business, we're not going to be able to fulfill our vision and our purpose and all of those sorts of things, right? So I say in my book, when you're in an airplane, they say, look, in the event of an emergency, fit your own mask first, then help other people, right?
Exactly.
Why? Because you're not going to be able to be any use to anyone if you've passed out and you don't have enough oxygen. And so the oxygen of business is cash flow.
Exactly. Okay, so you've got your 9 boxes, and then we're still kind of limited to a single page. So are we talking a sentence, a couple bullets? What kind of information do you fit into each one of those boxes? Just a few words? What's the next step?
Yeah, they're mainly bullet points, and some people want to expand on those bullet points, and that's fine. If you want to turn it into a 9-page marketing plan and have 1 page for each of the sections, that's totally fine. The point is that it can be done very, very quickly and very, very easily. Generally, bullet points I find is pretty good. So, for example, let's say we're selecting our target market. We want to be very, very specific about who that is, and we can do that in a few bullet points. So we might say, look, hey, I'm interested in people who have suffered a personal injury event in LA, and who maybe have a claim of this particular size or whatever else. You can be very, very specific about who you want.
Sure.
And so we can specify that in a few bullet points, because what we want to do is we want someone who sees that person or hears of that person to say, oh, hey, I know who can help you with that issue. Whereas if we say, look, you know what, we can help anyone and anyone with everything.
Yes.
That's not going to help us identify who our ideal target market is.
Right. And it's not going to keep you top of mind for anything. Like if you're just a broad-based generalist, then when any particular issue comes up, your referrals think, I'm not quite sure if they do that kind of thing. Whereas if this is someone that their friend has this very specific kind of injury. They know that you've done personal injury law in the past, and they say, oh, I know this person. I know they've done this kind of case. I've got the name for you.
Exactly. So if you look at reverse engineering things, if you look at your Google search history, and we're not going to ask anyone to reveal their Google search history, but if you look at it, it's going to be very, very specific. You're probably not typing in lawyer in the search box. You're typing in personal injury lawyer, Orange County, or whatever is relevant. So when I had some knee issues, and so I found a guy who was a specialist in helping people get their knees strong. His name is Knees Over Toes Guy. He's got millions of followers on Instagram, on TikTok, or whatever.
Exactly.
And so very, very specific. Now, he could probably help you with your neck. He could probably help you with your back. He could probably do whatever. But Knees Over Toes Guy. And so very, very specific. So people are searching very, very specific things. The other thing about being specific is you want your message to really land in a way where someone says, hey, that's for me. Whereas if you're too general, that's never going to happen.
Right.
If you're all things to all people, nobody's ever going to be, wow, that is exactly what I need. That's for me.
Yeah. Exactly, because then they have to do the work to figure out if you do that kind of thing. I saw a great recording of Seth Godin one time, and he was talking about where he was traveling in Canada in the middle of nowhere somewhere, and kind of what you were describing. He had this knee injury, and it was his left knee, and he said, if I could search for a specialist who only did left knees, I would want him to, because maybe there's some difference between my left knee and my right knee. And instead of searching for doctor or some, and I'm going to trust that person is going to do it exactly right. They've done this before. They understand. And so when you think about your own specific needs for whatever you're searching for, even if it's just you're searching for lunch, you're not going to just search for lunch. You're going to think, okay, today I really want a sandwich, or I'd like some soup, or whatever. Your needs are always very specific. And so I get a lot of younger attorneys or people who are just going out on their own, and they think, I need to pay the bills, and so I need to take any kind of case that I can take just to get started. And they think about it in the reverse way. I think I need to list every kind of practice area because I'm worried that I'm going to limit my income by only saying one thing.
Yeah, exactly. It is counterintuitive. It's where you think, hey, I'm going to create a wide net so that I can get the largest amount of business possible. But it's really quite counterintuitive. And I'm not saying that you can't take business outside of your specialized niche. If someone comes to you and says, hey, help me out with this, that's totally fine. But who are we going to go after with our valuable time, money, and effort in the marketing process? Who are we going to target? Who are we going to spend ads going after? Who are we going to reach out to? All of those sorts of things. So we want to be very, very targeted with our use of our limited resources, which is our limited funds for advertising, our limited time, our limited energy, and our limited team. So we want to be very, very specific about how we deploy those resources.
Okay, so we've got our one-page marketing plan. When we fill in each of those boxes, we're going to do just a very specific, very clear, and very niche bullet points under each of those boxes. So then how do we implement this? And I know you've got this thing called a scorecard where you kind of go kind of evaluate your marketing with a scorecard. How do those work together?
So the scorecard is designed to help you to figure out where you are currently strong and where you are currently have maybe some gaps or challenges that need filling. So some people are really, really strong with creating really good content, but maybe they're not great at converting that content. Or others are, hey, once I get on the phone with a client, I can absolutely convert them, no problem. It's just that I don't have enough lead flow coming in the top of the funnel. So the scorecard really helps you figure out where you're strong and where you need additional help and gaps filled. And it's probably similar to the intake process that a lawyer or doctor takes. It's like, there's a diagnosis process. There's like, if you go to a doctor, where does it hurt? And does it hurt if I twisted this way? And how did this happen? And how long has it been going on? Is it acute pain or is it a dull pain? And so on and so forth. So you get to a diagnosis. So we do something very, very similar from a marketing perspective. And so people can take the scorecard quiz. It'll give them a report around where they're strong in their marketing process, where they've got maybe some challenges and gaps. And then really we want to take that data and use it to help either modify or create their one-page marketing plan. So they work really well in conjunction with each other. People can take the quiz for free on our website or download the one-page marketing plan canvas on the website as well. So
you get the scorecard, and then it's going to align with, it'll kind of give you a score for each of those 9 boxes, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so then it tells you, okay, so you're, like you were saying, you've got some what's the word I'm looking for? Leads coming in, but you're not converting them. And so what are some of the bullet points that you would put, for example, under that lead conversion box to make that better, or, make that work in a better way if you find that, that's the area of weakness?
Yeah. So, for example, if you've got a conversion problem, as you mentioned, so that's really the during phase. So are we capturing leads? So that's one of the first things we would look at. So, hey, you've got lots of traffic coming to your website. Is that traffic just bouncing and leaving, or are we getting them into our funnel? Are we capturing those leads? Great. If we're capturing those leads, but they're still not leading to conversion, well, we're going to have a look at the nurturing process. What are you doing to nurture your leads? And lead nurturing is incredibly important. So many times people, everybody knows how to convert a client who's ready to buy right now. You're ready to buy right now. Great. Sign here on the dotted line, or give me a credit card or whatever else. But where it takes some sophistication is, how do you keep someone warm who's not ready to buy today? How do you keep them? How do you nurture them over 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, a year, 2 years time? And when they're ready to buy, still be a significant factor in their mind. And so what a lot of people do is a massive missed opportunity is they think, look, this guy is a tire kicker, he's not
Yes.
ready to buy, whatever, so next.
Yeah.
And what we find is that only about 3% of your addressable target market are ready to buy today. And they're the 3% that everybody's fighting over. They're running ads for them, they're trying to reach out to them, they're trying to convert them. But there's a massive second bucket of people who are ready to buy sometime in the future. And that could be 30, 60 days, 90 days, a year, whatever else. And when I look at our revenue and our sales, the vast majority of our revenue comes from people who have known about us for a significant amount of time. I recently spoke to someone who joined our coaching program. I said, how long have you been on our mailing list? And he said 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so if 2 years ago I had discounted this person as a tire kicker or whatever else, that'd be a massive missed opportunity.
Exactly.
And we would have only have a fraction of our revenue if we didn't have a long-term nurturing process.
Exactly.
So
well, I was going to add that. So my own, our clients are all lawyers, and our nurturing process, I have had clients that have stuck around for even longer than that. Oftentimes they are at a firm. They know they have like a 5-year plan that they want to start their own firm. And what was fascinating for me is during COVID, all of a sudden, a lot of those plans were expedited for various reasons. But, they either were pushed out of a firm, or they had this sort of life moment where they decided, okay, this is it. This is my time. And they had been following and reading my stuff for years. And so sometimes, I can tell in these initial calls, because I'll get on the first call and they'll say, I feel like I already know you because I've been following you for years and years. And that's such a good sign, because at that point, you really have to mess up for it to not go well, because they're mostly sold by the time they've got on a call and they've been following you for that many years. They wouldn't bother scheduling a call if they didn't think that this was the right answer.
Totally. I mean, the best kind of prospects are people who know you, like you, they're pre-motivated, pre-interested. It's a very, very different kind of dynamic when you get on a call with someone and they know who you are, they know how much you charge, they know what you're about, versus getting on a call with someone and they're like, all right, what do you offer? How much does it cost? Right? That's a very, very different dynamic.
Yes.
So if we've done the first 5 steps of our marketing process, which is capture those leads, have a good message, figure out our target market, our media, and nurturing all of that, the sales conversion process becomes very, very easy and natural, right? Yeah. It's essentially becomes order taking rather than trying to figure out creative ways to convert someone. So, and that doesn't mean we can't use creative ways to convert someone, but it just becomes so smooth and easy. You know, I used to hate sales because back in the day, I was trained up on all of these crazy closes and these hard sell kind of things. And I would fear getting on a sales call because I'm an introvert. You know, it feels weird to kind of put pressure on someone and do all of this sort of stuff. And I thought that's what sales was. But now I absolutely love sales because now I understand that sales is really diagnosis. You know, I'm there asking probing questions. They are speaking 90% of the time. I'm saying, well, tell me about your situation. Well, what else have you tried? And how long has that been going on? And tell me more about that, and so on and so forth. And so really they're telling me about their problem, and I'm listening and I'm figuring out, hey, are we a good fit or are we not a good fit? And most of the time the call ends with them converting themselves, them saying, okay, well, tell me about your program and how do I join?
Exactly. It sounds like maybe we have had experience in, there's been countless numbers of coaching programs that I went through years and years ago where they give you these sales scripts, and there was a voice in the back of my head that was telling me, this is not right. But I had to learn the hard way because I was so sold. Like the people who sold the coaching programs were geniuses and they were great salespeople. And I got sold on them. But what finally convinced me was watching my numbers take this huge dive. And there was no other thing I could point to other than this change in my approach. And it was very canned salesy. There was this thing where you had to this silence is golden idea where you just kind of go quiet and like let the person on the other end sort of fill the silence and sell themselves, which never worked with my clients and just created this weird, awkward silence. And I had this script that I would go through. And meanwhile, I was like, I don't really even understand what I'm asking. And I finally like set it all aside, figured out a much more natural and kind of, and like you're saying, this conversational approach where you're doing all the listening and just asking very detailed questions about their firm or what they're needing from you. And that's what works. And that's what works in any kind of a sales process, just sitting back, listening, and then providing the necessary info. Okay, so we were talking about, so the conversion is, that's what we're talking about, the conversion in the sales process, nurturing that conversion so that you even get to that point and recognizing that you've got this huge bucket of potential clients that are sitting there waiting for the right moment. So what else is important to know about this one-page marketing strategy that we haven't covered that, not everybody gets quite right?
Yeah, so we've covered awareness, and obviously awareness is a world of difference from action, right? So the first phase is about awareness. Okay, they're aware of us. The second phase is about conversion. Okay, great, we've converted that awareness to our first sale or our first transaction. Now we've kind of done the hard and expensive work of our marketing process there, and so the money is really made in the after phase. So the final phase where we deliver a world-class experience, we increase customer lifetime value, and then we orchestrate and stimulate referrals. So the first is, how do I deliver a world-class experience? A real wow experience where I turn these people from just their first transaction to being absolute raving fans, where we're building a tribe of people who are going to be net promoters. So sometimes marketers talk about a net promoter score. So that's people who would say positive things about them, who refer them new people. And there is a world of difference from someone who gives you $1 who is just transactional versus someone who gives you $1 who is really a raving fan. And your bank manager will tell you those are equal dollars, but I call that the principle of the unequal dollar, right?
Yes.
There are people who will pay late, always complain, always want to speak to the CEO, always unhappy, drain you and your team, versus people who love what you do, are really grateful, pay on time, easy to work with, and refer people to you, and really give you and your team energy.
Yes.
So world of difference. And really that's again a great reason why we want to start with defining our target market so well, because there are going to be people in your customer list who are awesome to deal with, and there are going to be people down the bottom who are not so awesome to
right.
deal
And
with.
Don't you find in your own work that the ones that are not so awesome to work with, their projects never turn out as well either. Even if you put the same amount of effort and you set all the feelings aside, the ones who are awesome to work with inherently always end up with a better result as well. So it's in everyone's best interest to not go in with this sort of authoritative, problematic sort of approach, because you're going to end up with a less great, I guess, for lack of a better English, but you're not going to end up with a great result either. So, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, be nice, be cooperative, go in with this idea of, being a great team player, and it's going to work out for everyone.
Well, I found almost exclusively throughout all of my past businesses and all the businesses I've consulted with, the most valuable clients, meaning the clients that pay you the most, that are the most profitable, are almost always the easiest to deal with, are the ones who pay on time. There's this little meme I saw going around the marketing community. So there's $500 client.
I love this one.
Look, tell me about the value you provide. I'm not really sure, all of this. I have to be sure about the results.
Proposal. I need to talk about
Send
it. We have to set up like 5 phone calls.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. $50,000 client. I've wired the money. When can we get started?
Done, paid. Yeah, exactly. We're ready. But there's something there about that client who understands the value, they know what they're getting, and the other one who's going to nickel and dime. And I guess where I'm going with all of it is, if you feel like that might be your approach, where you feel like you need to nickel and dime, it's probably because you haven't had those results. And it's this kind of cyclical thing where by kind of finding those agencies to work with that really provide the value, where you can then step back and give the trust and confidence, it's going to work out better in the end. I guess that was a little bit of a tangent. I apologize for that. But
totally makes sense.
But I do think it's a really important part of the overall strategy, that we're all working together, we're all on the same page, and we all feel good about it. And so even from an agency's perspective, don't take those projects that you know right away. They're red flags. It's not going to be a good one.
Totally. So we really want more optimal clients, because that's going to feed your team, and, rather than drain your team. The other part of delivering a world-class experience, which I think is incredibly important, is your business systems. So,
yes.
Is your system able to reliably create a similar result? So I'll give you an example. So we all know McDonald's, not the best burgers that you can possibly get, but they're consistent, right? And
exactly.
I mean, maybe consistently bad, right? Yep. But you know what you're going to get.
Yep.
There's going to be no surprises. If you pull over on the side of the road, there's a McDonald's, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a cafe nearby that I often have lunch at. Really good cafe. I enjoy it very much. But depending on what chef is on, the same meal that I order is going to be done a little bit differently. Sometimes it comes with a sauce. Sometimes it comes with some pesto. Sometimes it's whatever. And so it really just depends on the whims of the chef that day. And that tells me they don't have very tight systems. It's kind of just dependent on what's in that person's head that day, and you get what you get. And so I think having really tight systems is a very important part of delivering a world-class experience, on giving people a consistent experience, and having a system that you can calibrate over time, where you can say, hey, at this step, we're actually going to improve our onboarding strategy. This is what we're going to do this a little bit better, or whatever. So onboarding is a very, very important part of the customer experience.
Yeah, and when you're talking about law firms and the potential issues that you're dealing with your clients, these can be life-changing things. And to have these checklists to not only make sure that they have a good experience, but to make sure it's done correctly, and that all of the boxes are checked, and that you're not forgetting anything, your team's not forgetting anything, to have all those systems in place to deliver accurately and appropriately.
And that the intellectual property isn't siloed in someone's mind, right?
Yes.
Because people get sick, people leave, people move on to other jobs, or get busy, or whatever else.
Yeah.
And it's a real scalability blocker if all the intellectual property is in someone's mind. So we want to have checklists, systems that we tick off, things that we go through systematically. There was a great book, I think it was called The Checklist Manifesto, which was really demonstrated this. So as surgeons, before and after they did checklists, had a massive difference in their mortality rate. And it was just simple things like, hey, did you wash your hands before treating this patient? And it's just something that you would think would be a normal part of an experienced surgeon's routine, but like most people, their surgeons are imperfect, and sometimes they forgot to wash their hands before they handled the pregnant woman or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? So,
well, and the longer and more detailed the process, the more likely that you're going to forget a step or two. And so all the more reasons for those checklists. And I know I talked to Jack Newton from Clio a few weeks ago, and he was talking about he does all these legal trend reports about what clients are looking for. And the phrase he kept coming back to is that they just want it to be very easy. And they want things to be very clean and easy and clear, especially when you consider most people working with lawyers probably haven't worked with a lawyer before, unless you're a business lawyer and they're coming back to you over and over. But oftentimes it's the first time they've worked with a lawyer. So if you have this system and you can say, listen, we've got 3 steps in this system. I've got a checklist. I'm going to send you this checklist. It's going to be quick and easy, and I'm going to walk you through it, and it's straightforward. And you sound confident. You know what you're talking about. It conveys that to that client, but then you also have confidence in your team. It really is part of your marketing strategy, as strange as that may seem.
Very, very much so. And really it's about showing people that you're organized exactly as you said, and you know what you're doing, and there's a roadmap. So in a previous business, we had a telecommunications company, and part of it is there would be sometimes maybe a 2-week gap between the time that someone placed their order and that something would happen. Now, a 2-week gap is a long time for someone to not hear anything, right?
Yeah.
And so what we introduced, even though, hey, we're just waiting for the lines to get connected and it's just going to take that long, and even though we tell people that, people are getting, hey, what's happening? So we introduced a little step called a no news update, which would be, hey, Karen, everything's going really well. Everything's on track. We're expecting your service to be delivered in the next week or so. And so it's a no news update, so it's just keeping you in the loop that, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. Everything's fine. Everything's on track. We're all on time. And, we'll be in touch in a few days to arrange installation.
I love that, because we try to check in and do a weekly status report, even if nothing has changed and we're still waiting for the same thing that we were last week. I'm just going to remind you of that, and I'm going to continue to remind you of that so that the ball is in your court, or maybe the ball is in our court. But I have not disappeared off the planet. I am not, forgetting about you. You're still here. We're all together, and here's a little nudge that just lets you know that we're alive and well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
awesome.
It's a nice step, especially for something that goes over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And this is one of many things that you can do to deliver a world-class experience. So cover that obviously in a lot more detail. But yeah, there are a few things that you'd really want to think about is systemizing and just creating that easy experience. I call it being frictionless, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about some of the new payment methods that are coming in, where you can just with one click you place an order, that's frictionless. Whereas some websites, you go and you have to fill in 10,000 different forms and details and you're like, forget it. I don't want.
Well, and I think there's going to be this is just sort of a future kind of foretelling. I think all of the cookie messages and the disclaimers and the pop-up ads, sometimes I have to click or tap, depending if I'm on my phone, 4 or 5 times before I can even get to the homepage, which drives me absolutely bananas. So I think there's going to be a reckoning with that, where we're going to have some variation, because users are just, it's so frustrating and such a problem with kind of the user experience. So let's, I know there's so much more in this one page, even though it's a one page, very succinct and simple marketing plan. There's a lot more. Obviously, we will link to the book where it goes into much more detail. But now it is time for our book review. So what is the book that you have to recommend to the audience today that kind of relates to all the good stuff we've been talking about?
So a good friend of mine, Dave Jennings, wrote a book called Systemology. So we think very much alike when it comes to business systems, marketing also. So it's really about how do you systemize what you do, pretty much exactly what we've been talking about now. And, the one-page marketing plan is really a marketing system. But there are many systems that you'll have in your business. There'll be your administration system, there'll be your delivery system, there'll be multiple different systems. Now, the marketing system, I think, is the most important, potentially, certainly one of the most important. And so the one-page marketing plan talks about how do you implement a marketing system in your business. I'm from an engineering background. I'm not from a creative marketing background. I'm not, one of those bearded skateboarders or whatever in a loft or something like that. I'm a geek, right? I come from an engineering background, and so I'm like, okay, what's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? How do I figure all of this out? And so I've always taken a very systematic approach, and that's really served me well.
Yeah.
So I believe very, very, very much in business systems, because I think it makes your business more valuable.
Yeah.
It makes your business more valuable from a couple of perspectives. From your perspective, in terms of, hey, it's going to make my life easier. I can go for holidays if I get unwell or whatever. The business keeps running. But also, for your ultimate customer, which is the person who puts you out of business, which is, puts you out of business in a good way, meaning they write you the biggest check that you've ever seen. One day you're going to want to retire or sell the business or scale the business or whatever else. And so if it's all in your mind, and if all the intellectual property is in your mind, then that's not a very valuable business, because your business disappears once you disappear.
Yes.
So we want someone to write you the biggest check you've ever seen, because you've got a valuable business that you have systemized.
Yeah.
And so when I look at the businesses that I've sold in the past, I've been able to sell them for far more than they were worth, purely based on their revenue and their profit, because the acquirer saw the value in the intellectual property, and they could see, hey, if I acquire this intellectual property, I can apply that to my current business, my current customer base, and get a margin uplift or whatever else. So, so I think systems is an incredibly important part. And I think Dave's written a really good book called Systemology around that.
Yeah, I think there really is no other way to organize and look at, if let's say you are the potential buyer for that agency, the firm, the law firm, whatever it is, there's no other way to evaluate and find the value if there's no systems in place. So if it's all either in your head or just kind of, disorganized, or, in some way that isn't systematic, then you're going to be either lowballed or have no interest. And so, to your point, if that is part of your goal, which it should be for any kind of business, you have to have these systems in place in order for you to even find the value. But then also, as part of your marketing and sales process, if you have these clients coming in, you can't confidently say that you can execute and really perform if you don't have a system for whatever that is that you're trying to sell them on.
Yeah, exactly. So the business is either going to be one of a few things. It's either going to be worthless, or as you mentioned, you'll be lowballed, or you'll just get the standard industry multiple. It's like, okay, in our industry, the multiple is whatever, 3 times, 4 times. Okay, what's your revenue? We'll give you 3 times that, or what's your profit? We'll give you the multiple of that. And you really want to get away from that, because if you can have a conversation with someone who's buying your business around, hey, look, yes, you're going to get our revenue. Yes, you're going to get our customer base. That's fine. But the real value is the intellectual property. And you apply that to your business, and you're going to get this geometrical benefit. That's a very, very different valuation discussion than, hey, here's 3 times revenue or whatever else.
Yeah, it's kind of like, this is the last thing I'll say, but it's kind of like if you're looking at a house and you realize that the kitchen has not been redone. And so you go in and you say, okay, I'm going to have to go in and spend all this money and make the kitchen work, because, it's not livable. The kitchen we all need a working kitchen that isn't 50 years old. So either someone is going to come in and put a system into your firm, or you're going to do it right, and you're going to pay for it either way. So if you pay for the system up front and then you can resell that at a higher price, it's a better business place to be.
Most definitely. And that doesn't mean that you have to sell. A lot of people are like, hey, I love my business. I love what I do. I never want to sell. Great. But who knows? Maybe one day you may get bored of it. You may find a different opportunity that you want to move on to. You may want to do something else. Or
retire.
Whatever.
At some point, you should retire.
Retire. Having that option, optionality is so important in business and in life. That's going to be very, very important, very, very powerful for you.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great book. Systemology by Dave Jennings. We will link to that on the show notes as well. All right. So, Ellen, last question. What is one thing that you know that works?
Okay. So this is the major shift that I had that changed everything for me in my first business. So is really understanding that incidentally, my first business was an IT consulting business. So,
okay.
And so understanding that I was not in the business of IT consulting, I was in the business of marketing IT consulting. That mindset shift that was massive for me because when I thought I was in the IT consulting business, I thought the better I was at the technical thing that I did, the more certifications I got, the more skilled I got, all of those sorts of things, that was going to be the thing that was going to make my business do well. And, I just hit the wall with so many frustrations around growing the business when I had that mindset versus, hey, my business is actually marketing IT consulting services.
So how did you change? And so what did you change to when you had that epiphany?
Well, I started taking marketing and sales seriously because I thought I was mixing up majors and minors. I thought I've got the major thing already done, which is, hey, I've got really good technical systems. I've got really good knowledge, both myself and in my team. I thought that's the major piece of the puzzle, which I've solved. Now this minor little piece called sales and marketing, I need to figure this out. And really, I had that completely backwards.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, the technical part of what you do is important, and it is important to provide a great experience, but that's customer or client retention, right?
Yeah.
And before we think about customer or client retention, we need to think about customer or client acquisition. And so that's how we're building the business. And so everything changed for me when I really understood that and had that mindset shift. And that's really what I hope for everybody listening. And part of what I do is really help them have that mindset shift and help them learn to be marketers. And it's because it's not your fault either, because when you go to law school or medical school or chiropractic school, they'll spend 5-6 years, whatever, teaching you the technical part of your trade, and there's not a single class on how to get new clients or new patients or new customers in the door.
Yeah, so that's what this podcast is for.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So you just need to go to law school and then listen to the podcast.
Perfect. I love it.
That is a perfect place to end. So Allan Dib is an entrepreneur and founder, and he's the author of the one-page marketing plan. We will link to that on the show notes and link to the book that you recommended as well. There's so many good things here to take away. And you also mentioned that there's links to download the framework and everything for your one-page marketing plan. So I feel like that is such a great place for everyone to just sit down, throw a few notes into each one of those 9 boxes on that one-page thing and realize, like you said, take that scorecard and realize where your weaknesses are and use that as a starting point. So, Allan, thank you so much for being here. That was really an awesome conversation.
Karen, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the CounselCast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.